Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video, it is going to be another ranking. And I am going to be ranking all 11 of the Spider-Man/Venom movies. So after what felt like one of the longest waits ever and much anticipation, Spider-Man No Way Home is finally in theaters. Which of course means I have to update my Spider-Man ranking. I also didn't update it when Venom Let There Be Carnage came out, so that will be a new addition too. And just as a heads up, this will be spoiler-free for Spider-Man No Way Home. So if you have yet to see Spider-Man No Way Home, you can proceed with confidence. And for those of you who have already seen it and were looking for spoilers, well, you are going to know exactly why it places where it places. Before we hop into the actual ranking, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my ranking videos. So be sure to check that out, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Number 11, Venom. This was an easy one. Well, pretty easy anyway. It was between this one and Venom Let There Be Carnage. Tom Hardy is great. Eddie and Venom's relationship is also great. It's got some fun set pieces and enough comedy to keep you chuckling throughout. But that's pretty much where the positives end. Despite being played by Riz Ahmed, who is a phenomenal actor, the villain is awful. The story isn't very good, the dialogue is super cringe, and the action isn't very good either. It can still be a fun time if you're in the right mood, but overall it's pretty lackluster. Number 10, Venom Let There Be Carnage. This sequel has many of the same issues as the original, but thankfully it made enough changes to help it rise above its predecessor. Firstly, it changed directors, and we now have Andy Serkis in the director's chair. The movie flies by at a much faster pace. Woody Harrelson and Carnage are far more interesting villains. It lays the groundwork for expanding this universe, and it ups the action quite a bit. The storytelling is still pretty weak, the majority of the dialogue is super cheesy and corny, but I have to admit I do have more fun watching this one. Number 9, Spider-Man 3. Okay, this was a really tough decision to make between this one and the next one. What it came down to is nostalgia. Basically what I'm trying to say is I saw this movie when it first came out. I was 9 years old and afterwards I was on cloud 9. I freaking loved this movie, and growing up I rewatched it time and time again. But when it came to doing this ranking, I had to take the nostalgia out of it. And when you take the nostalgia out of it and look at which is the weaker of this movie and the next one, it is this one. Emo Peter is hilarious, yes, and endlessly memeable, of course, but it is such an awful character choice. Why does Sandman need to be directly linked to Peter's story? Harry's very selective amnesia, Topher Grace as Eddie Brock, and then Venom being shoehorned into the final act just in time for the final fight. The whole MJ and Peter's relationship thing makes no sense at all. There are 1,000,001 ways that easily could have been avoided. Just so many poor, nonsensical decisions made story-wise. Thankfully, it still has many of the staples that makes the Raimi trilogy so great. Like phenomenal action, some genuine and heartfelt moments, Danny Elfman's score, and it really does feel like the conclusion of a trilogy when looking at that final shot. Number 8, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This was the one that Spidey 3 was in competition with. Yes, I know a lot of you are going to disagree, but look. This is likely the best looking Spider-Man movie. It is also probably the best live-action Spider-Man suit we have gotten. It has some truly amazing action, a stellar score, and Peter and Gwen's relationship is likely the best aspect of both of these movies, and Gwen's death is undeniably devastating. However, this movie's downfall is that it just lacks focus. I really do think Electro is a great villain, and I do prefer the blue look. They just sort of botched Max Dillon's story. I like the idea that they were going for, but the execution was very poor. And then you add in Rhino, and then you add in Harry Osborn, and then you add in Peter and Gwen's on-again, off-again relationship, with Gwen also trying to go off to Oxford, alongside wasted actors and characters like Felicity Jones as Felicia Hardy and Chris Cooper as Norman Osborn. And then you also throw in more of Peter's parents' stuff and setting up for the Sinister Six. Just way too many moving parts for one movie. Number 7, The Amazing Spider-Man. This is just an enjoyable Spider-Man story, plain and simple. Yes, it is an origin story once again, but it does make some changes here and there. Thankfully, it does a great job at setting itself apart from the Raimi movies both in terms of look and feel. Andrew Garfield was an excellent choice to take on the role of Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, and he doesn't get as much love as he deserves. The Lizard is a good villain, not great, but good. I do wish he was fleshed out a bit more, but I enjoyed what I got. Emma Stone is perfect as Gwen Stacy, and once again, her and Peter's relationship is the best part of both of these movies. James Horner's score is magnificent, but all in all, in the end, it is a bit too slow for my liking, some parts are a little too familiar, and I also just have a few too many little nitpicks with it here and there. Number 6. Spider-Man Homecoming. This first solo Tom Holland entry is a real treat. He was the perfect choice for this generation's Spider-Man, and I love him in the role. Michael Keaton is superb as the Vulture, aka Adrian Toomes. Peter's obsession with Tony makes sense, and it always has. I love the tough love lesson that Tony teaches Peter about if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. I like how there's more of a focus on the high school side of things, and it's high school kids that actually look and feel like high school kids. It's got a lot of great side characters like Ned, Happy Hogan, and Aunt May. A truly nail-biting final fight, and Michael Giacchino's score is exceptional as always. It is just a touch too small scale for my liking. I feel they took the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man a bit too seriously, and I really wish we got to explore New York a little bit more. Also, the character of Shocker, who is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, is utterly wasted. Also, the suit and the action feel a little too fake sometimes. It just looks too flawless, and I wish they used practical a little bit more. Number 5. Spider-Man Far From Home. I do think this one is a slight step up from its predecessor. MJ and Peter's relationship is adorably awkward and feels so genuine. I've always liked how conflicted Peter is in this one. He just wants to be a kid again, but he now has all the responsibilities of being a full-blown Avenger. Jake Gyllenhaal is brilliant as Mysterio as expected, and even though we all saw the betrayal coming, it still really hurt because their friendship felt so genuine. The final battle with the drones is pretty badass, and the European setting is quite refreshing. And this movie also has possibly the most bonkers and jaw-dropping end credits scene ever. That being said though, I still do not think for a second that this whole drone illusion thing could ever work, even in this universe. I'm also not a huge fan of the fact that Mysterio is basically just an Iron Man villain. And I also don't love the fact that the Blip and the other heroes' deaths are handled in a far too lighthearted and comedic fashion. Number 4. Spider-Man. Ah yes, the classic. For the most part, this movie holds up extraordinarily well. The only gripe that I really have with this movie is that a lot of the dialogue feels clunky and awkward and really hasn't aged all that well. Aside from that though, this is the definitive Spider-Man origin story. Tobey Maguire is marvelous as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Willem Dafoe is spectacular as Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. The fight scenes feel raw, real, and super hard-hitting. That final fight in particular is insanely brutal. Most of the visuals have held up surprisingly well. The pacing is excellent, Danny Elfman's score is iconic, and it really is a near-perfect introduction to the character and a near-perfect Spider-Man movie in general. Number 3. Spider-Man No Way Home. These final 3 were so difficult to place. But this is how it's going for now, on the release weekend of Spider-Man No Way Home. But in all honesty, the more I think about it, the more I adore it. So only time will tell if it will rise or fall in the ranking. There is so much to love here, so much. There are a ton of surprises in here, and plenty of twists as well. Tom Holland is at his best. Ned, MJ, Aunt May, all at their best. Thankfully, despite all that is going on, it is still very much a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. Willem Dafoe is a scene stealer, Doctor Strange and Peter's dynamic is great, and the final battle absolutely delivers. I laughed, I cried, I cheered, all of it. This movie had a lot to juggle, and they handled it very well. Yes, there is a ton of fan service in here, but they do it all appropriately and it is handled with care. My only gripes are that some of the villains are sort of just reduced to glorified henchmen rather than their former selves. Sometimes there is a bit too much comedy spliced in for its own good. Sometimes the action feels a bit too CGI heavy, aside from one fight which is basically all practical and amazing. And also, despite my love for the final fight, sometimes there is a bit too much going on and you have to shift your focus around a little more than I would have liked. Number 2. Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. In the build-up to this movie, whoever would have thought that it would have been this good? It's got unique animation, bold and brilliant storytelling, exceptional voice work from everyone, a very diverse and colorful cast of characters, and some excellent life lessons for both the audience and Miles as our main character. Not to mention some very bonkers visuals. In the end, it is basically a perfect Spider-Man movie. I really don't have any flaws with it, and I am absolutely chomping at the bit for its sequels. I need more of this ASAP, as it is among some of the best Spider-Man media we have ever gotten. Number 1. Spider-Man 2. The definitive Spider-Man movie. And still the best we have yet to get in my mind. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock is marvelous. I love his villain origin story, and the fight sequences with him as Doc Ock are very well choreographed and play to both of the character's strengths. The subway fight scene in particular is among the best superhero throwdowns ever. Peter's existential crisis is a warranted one. His normal life is falling to pieces, and it is all because of his Spider-Man life, so he's wondering, is it really worth it? Aunt May's hero speech is what snaps him back to reality, and it is delivered beautifully by Rosemary Harris. Peter once again learns what it truly means to be Spider-Man, both for himself and for the people of New York. Visually, it still holds up pretty good, and it is remarkably well paced. With great storytelling, lots of little emotional beats that are so special, and Danny Elfman's score is once again top tier. I really genuinely do not have a single flaw with this movie. And as I said in the beginning, I still feel this has yet to be topped. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. And while you're at it, feel free to let me know how you would rank the Spider-Man movies and what ranking you'd like to see me do next. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.